When I signed up for this talk, I had no idea it was going to be on the 2nd of January. Um, but nonetheless, it's great to start the year pretty early, and then also sort of be giving a talk. I think when you were introducing me just now and you talked about open source evangelist and you talked about product manager, sometimes I tend to forget that in code I have all those titles, or that aspect of my bio is out there somewhere on the internet, describing who I am. But when I got the topic for this and it was about smart goals and New Year resolutions, I'm not the biggest person about January 1 year resolutions. I like the fact that when you get to January 1, there's that sort of reset button that goes off in people's heads or goes off around the world where people start, reprogramming what they want to do next. But I think in actual fact, your new year can be any day of the year. It could be the 1st of February, it could be the 2nd of June, it could be your birthday in the year where you sort of set up a couple of resolutions and say, I won't do this, or I want to do this, I want to be better at this. And that's a very good thing. The thing about the December, January New Year resolution is like it takes some time to take stock, right? During that period, there's less work, there's a lot more, partying or holidays or just, relaxing. And because that's the environment of taking stock or reflecting or planning for the new year, I think it's okay to have New Year resolutions. I'm not very big about all of them. I've not done New Year resolutions every year of my life for the last 20, 30, or 40 years. But I think mentally, I've tried to resolve to do things differently every now and then. And one thing that I think is very important or has been very helpful is being able to put a framework around this, right? Being able to put kind of templates or a definition or a structure around the way you think about your future or your plans or your goals. And there's so many of them. Any of these frameworks in themselves or these structures in themselves are not going to change anything for you. So whether it's SMART or it's OKRs or it's KPIs or you're using any other kind of system, right? In the long run, you're going to have to do the work. And like I've said in a couple of other talks and similar conversations I've had, it still boils down to some of the things that our parents, our senior ones, our elders always tell us about, hard work, dedication, determination. So whatever the case, whatever you're going to set for yourself personally, or set for your organization, or set for your team, ultimately, you're going to have to do the work. It's not going to happen. Just adopting a framework or labeling the thing you're doing with some sort of framework isn't going to solve the problems or give you the desired results you want. And then speaking of which, when they reached out to me about SMART goals and KPIs, I mean, there's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of frameworks. One very popular framework that has been talked about a lot, written about a lot, is the OKR methodology. OKRs. And then what are OKRs? Basically, OKR stands for objectives and key results. And I think we use them heavily at Google. I mean, it's used in a lot of other companies, I think, like LinkedIn and Twitter. It came out from the days of Intel. I would totally advise you to just, if you've never heard of OKRs, just go read up on OKRs, right? So usually when I have a talk like this, whatever you can find on Wikipedia or YouTube or Google search or a standard book or explanation, I don't see the point of coming here to just recite what you can search or dig up and learn. I would rather much more be interested or inclined to tell you how I've used this in my life, how I understand it, how I've seen people do amazing stuff with these methodologies or these frameworks or these tools, right? In the long run, for something like OKRs, there's so many tools out there, from the simple pen and paper to write down something all the way to more sophisticated tools you can use to implement OKR methodologies. just for a little bit of context, I will present my screen. I hope I get this right. It's the first presentation of the year, and I really don't have a presentation, to be honest, right? But I jotted down a few things, and I would just want to share them with you, um, and just so that there's some kind of reference. If I build this up later, I've actually created a small short URL that I can share this with you with, but it takes a little bit of effort to put these things together. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about objective and key results. So for those who don't know me, my name is Aniedi Dobong. Currently work DevRel at Google. DevRel is developer relations, developer ecosystem. I'm on a team that ensures that a lot of the resources that are available to Google are provided to people on the outside who are not working with Google, right? So engineers, founders, startups can embrace Google's platforms, tools, technologies, programs, events, communities, playbooks, and use that to succeed, whatever success means. And in defining success, is where things like OKRs, objectives, and key results come. So like I said, I'm not going to do the definition of objectives and key results. I did take a very quick look at what the current state of media article on it was. Quite impressive. I didn't even read through the entire thing, but I did a little bit of reference, and I always urge people to do that. But one clearer thing that I can say is with OKRs, there's a question that comes to mind, and of course, it's a very popular movie, I think, by Ice Cube and a couple of kids that goes with the "Are we there yet?" You know, that was the name of the title of the movie. You know, have we gotten there? I know. Are we there yet? You know, the OKR methodology, in my experience, helps you very much answer this question, right? If we look at it from a different point of view, what the OKR methodology helps to solve is a very pertinent question that I tend to ask people when I try to discuss this in a more company-focused startup, you know, founders, you know, top business, whatever kind of people for small companies. And this is the telling question. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know when you get there? Or how will you know when you get there? And it seems like a very simple, cheeky, funny question, like, you know, what's this guy saying? How can somebody don't know where they're going? But just think about it. If you stepped out of your house and you had no destination in mind, you know, I know there's people that do Mogbomoya, right? My speaker volume is low. Let me put it on the highest. Okay, I know there's some people that have this difficulty with sort of like Mogbomoya, or I not difficulty, like, you know, you say, okay, so that's like you go somewhere, and then when you get there, and it's like you just dress up and wear your clothes for a party. Can you hear me better now? It's still very bad. Should I raise my voice? Is there anything I need to do? Should I check my microphone settings? Give me a second. Since my voice is loud there. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me loud and clear? All right, cool. So the question is, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know where you get there, right? And there's another way they put this also, which says, and I think this also came from somewhere in Alice in Wonderland, where the Cheshire Cat or so was asking Alice a question about, okay, I think it had some conversation to do with which way are you going to go, the left or the right, and I think because Alice didn't know where she was going, the guy, I think Cat was like, well, it doesn't matter. Then if you don't know, since you're not sure where you want to go to or where you're trying to arrive at, it makes no difference whether you choose left or right, because either way is okay for you, right? So you want to like avoid that kind of situation. Let me sort of bring it home a little bit, right? And I'm being very conscious of time as well. So if I left Lagos Airport, right? Lagos Airport, probably international airport. And I was going to Aja. Someone has raised their hand. I don't know if people understand the raising hand thing is to ask a question. If you don't have a question, please lower your hand. But anyway, so if I left the Lagos Airport and I was going to Victoria Garden City in Aja, right? And I got into a taxi. If I have no idea where VGC is, absolutely no idea where VGC is, then the driver can drive me for 10 minutes and drop me off somewhere and say, this is VGC, and maybe collect 10K from me for my taxi fare. Second thing, if I'm leaving the airport and I'm going to VGC, and I'm aware it is a 50-kilometer journey, after 30 seconds or after 5 minutes, I can't start asking the driver, are we there yet? You get what I'm saying? It will make sense, right? If I put it from another point of view, you're going from the airport in Ikeja to VGC, right? If you didn't know where you were going, you didn't know where VGC was, you didn't even know the name of VGC, and then somewhere along the line, you stopped on the road to ask someone for directions, and you stop and then you tell the driver to stop, and then you wind down, you're like, hello, sir. I say, yes. Say, please, can you tell me where, can you give me a direction to where I'm going to? And the person says, where exactly are you going to? Say, I don't really know. I mean, that would sound very silly or very mad, you know? How do you expect someone to help you if you don't even know where you're going? And then finally, I mean, let's put Lagos traffic aside, because sometimes in Lagos traffic, you don't decide how far the place is. You sometimes decide it with time because of traffic and other things. But the scenario I'm going to paint here is, if you're going to VGC, right, and it's a 40-kilometer journey, and let's say you have some kind of, you know, speedometer or metric meter or whatever, odometer on your phone, and you realize that the amount of times you've taken turns and, you know, detours and flyovers and expressways, you've driven for 100 kilometers and you're still not at VGC. You're going to start asking questions. Okay, driver, why we never reach VGC? What's happening? How come we're not at VGC? We've been driving around for, you know, we don't cover more than 100 kilometers and I've still not reached my destination. Or if you look at it from a time point of view, and I said I don't really like relying on time in Lagos because that even affected me today and almost made me pull out of this event, is if you said from Lagos Ikeja Airport to VGC is 35 minutes, and all of a sudden, after about 2 hours, you're still driving and you've not reached VGC, then you can ask a couple of questions, right? So what am I trying to say here is, and I'll give you a couple of other examples. Many of us might have had this experience before where you ask somebody, say, okay, how do I get from here to University of Ibadan or to Iyanopaja? I person say, it's far. Oh, just they go. It's far, down, just far. Just they go, shall they far? I mean, like, if someone tells yes, it's far, like, give me some kind of reference point. Well, you're not an accurate, you're not Google Maps, but you should be able to just clearly tell me, okay, how journey you go take reach there, or okay, you never say, okay, never even start. Say, okay, where they come from? They come from Aja, and you guys they see them and say, okay, the place where they go, and like that Aja to CMS where you just come, blessing another Aja to CMS, you won't work go. You see, when there's a little bit of a frame of reference, when there are some metrics, then it starts making sense. So I'm going to take a step away from these sort of illustrations and discussions and try to explain to you how OKRs, how SMART goals, and how all these things work, right? Like I said, you can Google these things, you can Wikipedia them, you can YouTube them to get the correct definitions and things that will put you on track and some of the tools. But let's dive into this a little bit. So this is the Wikipedia definition, which I dug up 30 minutes ago, just to understand what Wikipedia was saying. And Wikipedia says objectives and key results, OKR, alternatively OKRs, that's like plural, is a goal-setting framework used by individuals, teams, and organizations to define measurable goals and track their outcomes, right? Objectives and key results, a goal-setting framework. You know what you want to do, what you're targeting, where you're aiming. But beyond just setting a goal and saying this is what we want, you define and track outcomes along the way. And that's very, 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 very important. Give me a second. Right. So this is the Wikipedia definition, and I'll take it a little step back, or take it in a different way and use a definition that we sort of use a lot within Google when we're doing a lot of, training and definition and talking to ourselves about OKRs. And it's also the definition I use when I'm talking to people outside. So I'll go to the next slide. And it says, OKRs are a critical thinking framework and an ongoing discipline that seeks to ensure employees work together, focusing their efforts to make measurable contributions that drive the company forward. Now, this is a very packed definition, right? And it could take forever to break this down. But I will explain to you what this is all about, and I'll give you a very classical example. For those of you who know some of the work I do, I work with communities. I work with GDGs. The most important aspect about the objectives and the key results framework is how you frame the objectives and how you frame the key results. Objectives generally are aspirational, like what you want to achieve, what does success look like? What do you want to be? You want to be the number one, or you want to be the leading search engine in the world. You want to connect everybody in the world via a virtual platform. Or you want to make it possible for everyone to buy anything from anywhere with just the click of a button. If you look at some of the things I've just described, that basically describes what Facebook done, probably a little bit of Google, right? You want it to be possible to find any video anywhere, upload it, and enjoy it without stress. Those big objectives sort of frame your mind. And in the OKR methodology, objectives need to be ambitious, right? You will hear the framework or the term called moonshot thinking, where you're thinking big. And I've given you 3 classical examples. Bill Gates and the team said they wanted a PC, a personal computer, on every desk of everyone in every office, in every house in the world, right? Google says we want to organize the world's information and make it accessible for everyone. Amazon says they want you to be able to, and then when they started with books, they want you to be able to buy any book anywhere from any publisher and have it delivered to you in minutes, right? When you look at the objective and start saying where you want to be, and then if you bring it down to that, you can want to be a world-class developer, you could want to be, the leading authority or the go-to person when they're talking about Web3 or blockchain, or when they're talking about product management. You want to be one of the people that is referred to. These objectives are qualitative, and you would see this in some definitions of what the objectives and key results are. Now, where the whole thing changes is that for it to be useful, and this is where principles like SMART, I don't know if somebody else is going to talk about SMART. When it says SMART goals, they talk about specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, right? Other people can tell you about SMART. I'm not a SMART expert, but I know that SMART and OKR are very fine, and I'll come back to that. And I'll wrap this up very, very soon. I know we have limited time. So the most important thing about objectives and key results is the measurement. Making measurable contributions, knowing where you are on the journey from Ikeja to airport. Are you halfway there? Or a 40-kilometer journey, have you covered 20 kilometers? If you've covered 10 kilometers out of 40 kilometers, you've done 1/4 of the journey, right? If you've done the whole 40 kilometers, or if you have done 60 kilometers so far for a journey that should be 40 kilometers, and you have not arrived at your destination, then there's a problem, because the numbers in code are not adding up. So the way OKRs work and the way I understand them is you first of all set a qualitative objective. So maybe you land in Lagos and your objective is to get from the airport to a gated community that has all the infrastructure and facilities so that you can do your work very well, so that you can live in a peaceful environment. That's the objective. The key result will be that you're going to have to cover 40 kilometers to get there. And at every point in time, or let's even say, so you're going to have to cover 40 kilometers in about 2 hours' time. Let's just factor in Lagos traffic. So you expect to get there in 2 hours, and in 2 hours, you're supposed to have covered 40 kilometers. You see what starts happening in the key results, numbers start coming in. That is different between the person that will tell you, say, just they go, if I well, and the guy that says, it's about 40 kilometers, you're about halfway there. In another 5 minutes or in 10 kilometers, you'll be there, right? Once your key results, once your framework starts having numbers, you are in OKR territory. You have started using this fantastic framework that's used at Google, Intel, LinkedIn. And if you look at the SMART and SMART goals, one of the two things about SMART and SMART goals is that they need to be specific and they need to be measurable. You have to measure them, right? And this thing kills people in teams and organizations. How far have we gone? I'm working on it. No, you're not working on it. It's not enough to tell your people I'm working on it, or the work they go on, they try. We go soon finish. We'll be putting a lot of effort. I personally know when I talk to teams, individuals, or startups, the people who can't use numbers, percentages, fractions, the specificity are usually weak people. I'm sorry to say this, right? When you start speaking to strong people, they will be able to tell you, though, we've covered 20%. You start hearing numbers in the results. How far have we gone? Oh, we've been able to talk to 5 out of the 10 customers we intended to talk to, right? We've been able to, of the 55 individuals who stay in this estate, we've been able to sell internet to 30 of them. When you start seeing numbers in the results, know that you're discussing OKRs. Give me a second. Let me connect my power. All right. Right? When you start seeing those numbers, you know you're in OKR territory. And what does that mean when it comes to things like being measurable? You can measure numbers. You can't measure arbitrary conversations. We they try, or we just they push and they go, or hard work. The team is motivated. What does that really mean, right? So for me, give you an example. I come up in 2022 and I can measure. I have 160 GDGs across 33 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and there are 48 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, which means that there are probably about 15 countries that don't even have at least one GDG. You see where the numbers are coming from? 33, 48, 1. So somebody may look at me and say, well, how far are they doing so more? We work with developers for Africa, very hard working. But yes, that's all. But you see the thing about a critical thinking framework, a framework that asks questions. The only thing about critical thinking is that they're going to ask questions. And the question I can ask myself at the beginning of the year is, why am I not in Lesotho or in Zambia or in Equatorial Guinea? Why don't I have a GDG there? I can clearly set a goal for myself that in 2022 and beyond, especially I'm talking about beyond 2022, one of my goals is to make sure that there's at least one GDG in each of the 48 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. My objective is to make sure that the Google program reaches everybody everywhere. That's Google's mission. So our developer tools, our developer relations, our developer activities, our communities need to cover the entire Africa. If that is the objective, to make sure it reaches everyone, then one way I can measure whether or not I have achieved that objective is just to count the number of countries in sub-Saharan Africa, which is 48, and realize that I've only done 33. And then I can start making clear plans on how I want to get into countries where I have no footprint. Can I call someone? Can I check people online? Can I go and tweet and say, hey, I'm specifically looking for this, right? The other thing is that you look at numbers too. I can look and say, okay, currently have 200 Google Developer Student Clubs across 26 countries or 28 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. How many of them are active? How many of them have held an event in the last 6 months? For some reason, Corona, budget, anything. I could come this year and say, my goal this year, my objective this year is to make sure that our student community networks are vibrant and active. That is an objective. It's very ambitious. I want activity all across all the universities and tertiary institutions in sub-Saharan Africa where Google currently has a footprint. But I still have to quantify it. I've got 200 leads, 200 schools covered. My goal could be to make sure that each of the 200 people conducts 2 events, which means I'm looking for 400 events to be held, and for an average of about 50 people per meetup. So that means 50 times 400, you're putting me in the region of 20,000 attendees. And I want this to happen before the end of Q1 or before the end of half of the year. And I know it may be impossible for all my 200 student clubs to be active all year long. Some may be on holiday, strikes, COVID is ravaging in some other countries. My goal could then be me explaining to my manager or to my teammates, one of whom is on this call, and say, my goal, my key result, or my key result is to make sure that 90% of the 200 GDGs and 200 GDSs are active, which means they've done one event in the last 3 months, and we're only going to be counting events that have 50 or more people. In that case, we're doing 50 times 200, and we're trying to reach 90% of that number. Do you see where the numbers in the key result? It's not just, oh, well, make student clubs just they host event, they run things. No, to make sure that we are making progress so that we can measure what we do this quarter versus what we did last quarter and ask ourselves, okay, in January 2020, 2021 versus January 2022, what's the big difference? What have we achieved? What have we attained? We can do those measurements. When you see companies talk about the number of users they reach, Google will tell you how many queries per second are made, how many minutes of YouTube are loaded every second, how many pictures or billions of pictures are loaded to Google Photos every day, how many files on Dropbox, how many hours of content, how many people download, watch TikTok videos per minute. You see, those companies and those individuals use these frameworks. So I'm giving you broad examples, like where you go, the place they find, just they go. You don't even know where they go. How long will it take? I'm giving you a bit more specific things about my program as a regional lead for GDG and GDSC, with our women technical communities in Sub-Saharan Africa. I'm judged by numbers. My objective is to make sure that my organizers are happy, they agree. Even to say my organizers are happy, how do I know whether my organizers are happy or not? We send out a survey. It's called a customer satisfaction survey, CSAT. We send out a CSAT and we set a couple of questions, and people score from 1 to 5. They answer maybe 20 questions, like a survey, and then you come back and you do a summary. So out of 4 over 5, like 5 stars that you have on Uber, people will come back, and at the end of the day, you find out that you're getting a 4.4 over 5 in terms of the 100 people who surveyed who filled the questionnaire or the survey. The way we do that with a framework like an OKR, we could set a goal or a key result that we would at least solicit feedback from 100 people, and the goal is to ensure that we have a CSAT score of 4.9 out of 5 and above. You see, when you start talking on those kind of levels, on those kind of terms, whether it's your startup, whether it's your business, even whether it's yourself, how many hours of content do you consume? You know, how many videos have you downloaded? How many books have you read? How many lines of code? How many times in a year, 365 days, have you committed to GitHub? You know, looking at your whatever. There's so many ways in which you can measure what you're doing. So I'm just going to wrap this up. And like I said, I'll send a few resources. I probably will make this presentation online. I've created a URL for it, but I know that this is nothing close to where I would want this presentation to be. But because of the fact that I'm going to add resources and I can update the presentation, I'm going to share that with you. The most important thing with a smart goal setting system, smart and straightforward, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Time bound is very important. My friend says a goal without a deadline or a timeline is a wish. I think I got that from my friend Dario. If you want to do something, you want to become a world-class developer, you want to land a remote job, you want to start earning $2,000 minimum per month or whatever, you want to start making 500K on your job. If you don't put a timeline to it and say by June or by December 31st, if you just say I want to do this, you don't put a timeline, that's not goal setting. That's not smart. If it's not time bound, it's not working. And then OKRs naturally are time bound because we are not setting quarterly goals or annual goals. So the first things first is that's a critical thinking framework. You ask yourself a couple of questions. You don't just when things come up on why am I doing this, who, why, where. It's a critical thinking framework. It makes you ask questions. When you hear weak words like few, some, more, a little, you stop and you say a little what, how many. In fact, just remember that guy that says the place still they far, just they go. When you start talking like that or responding or relating like that, you're not making sense. Put time boundaries around the kind of things you want to do. An ongoing discipline is not set and forget. You don't just set it and then go away. You must continuously ask yourself, which is why I'm asking, are we there yet? And I'm saying that you can only know if you're there yet if you know where you are going. And if you know how much time or how much distance you're supposed to cover. So that if you're covering distance and you're in the right direction, you know you're halfway there. Or you've just started or you never start. Or you don't overdo, you suppose don't reach here by now. So it's an ongoing thing. You're asking. So this helps you focus. In a company setting, it helps you focus. When you ask this question, you don't get the answer, or somebody asks you the question, you can't give the answer. My manager comes to me and says, how many GDGs in this is conducted dev first? And I can't answer. I have to go back and write a report or focus my effort in getting these numbers, or making sure that I have this number so that in case tomorrow I'm asked, I can pull it out of my hat. I've taken almost half of the time. All right, of the 1 hour 30 minutes. So there's another speaker coming up. And then the eventual reason why you're doing these measurements and critical thinking and all that is to move the company forward. In this case, a personal situation, what we are trying to do is to advance our personal, maybe our career, our earning capacity, the amount of time we spend. We want to reduce the amount of time we spend online and spend more time having fun or with family or whatever it is. The bottom line is there are a few things you need to understand. Be very clear about what you want to achieve. Set that as an objective if you're using the OKR methodology or framework. And then the key results, make sure that you're using numbers to measure them. It's not yes or no. It is 30%, 20%, half, increase by 10%, 100%, all, 5 out of 10, 2 over 5. Even simple example like if you're the front-end developer or you're working in UX and to sign up for your app takes 10 steps. And you want to improve the UX of your app, that is a great objective. What is the key result? How will you know that the UX of your app has improved? If instead of clicking 10 times for someone to sign up, somebody can click 3 times and only type maybe their password or validate something. So to reduce the time it takes to create an account on our platform from 10 clicks to a minimum of 3 clicks, that's a big deal. And that's how OKRs in action in just a very specific example. So I hopefully feel that this is just, also it's just, we're just getting to January. So let's not dive too deep and get too technical. The most important thing you need to understand is that there is a framework called OKR. If you've never heard of it before, it's a framework that is religiously used in companies like Google, Twitter. It was built out at Intel by, I think, John Doerr and the group and all those guys. And then you can apply it to your personal life, and you can also apply it to your company, team, organization. And that when you think of OKRs, they tell you where you want to go and how you can get there, or whether you're there yet or not. And then finally, that the objectives are sort of qualitative, a state of how things would be, a visionary, ambitious end, while the key results are quantitative. You can calculate, you can empirical, they're empirical, there are numbers added to them. So if you find yourself saying you're doing OKRs and your objectives are not very aspirational and out there, ambitious, setting something, and then they're not even time bound or they're not specific with numbers. Even when I think it was Kennedy, when he said we're going to put a man on the moon after the Russians had launched into outer space, he said before the end of the decade. There was a timeline, and they did achieve the timeline. That's so when you hear of the original moonshot. The original moonshot was to put a man on the moon. Time bound, very clear what they wanted to do and why they wanted to achieve it. So whether it's the Wikipedia definition you're more comfortable with, and you should go read the Wikipedia article and dig deep and find out more about OKRs and this fantastic method that has yielded amazing results for a lot of developers, companies, and individuals. I do hope that you find out where you are going, set the objective very, very clearly, so that along the way you can measure and know how far you have gone, whether you have gone too far, exerted too much pressure, wasted too much effort. But OKRs is a methodology, like many other methodologies out there, is around 4Ds, 40X, KPIs. There's a ton of them, critical success factors, and all that kind of stuff. But this, I hope, provides a little bit of motivation and inspiration to go check out this amazing topic. And there's a bunch of resources out there. I will try as much as possible to keep this deck up to date. Right now, if you go here, it's almost going to be a waste of time, but I'm going to share a bit.ly link, which I believe over time I will update. I think it should be bit.ly OKRs, bit.ly/Aniedi OKRs 22. 2022. Let me just test that and make sure it works. Very quickly. And yeah, I'm not sure I have time for questions. I'm not even sure I have the energy for questions. I surprisingly spent an amount of time in traffic today. But I'll keep this presentation there. I'll update a few slides. I'll give you some links you can check out. One link I check out a lot, especially when I'm talking to companies founders, is okrexamples.co. And in okrexamples.co, you will find a ton of OKR examples for different companies, for HR, for finance, there's a ton of stuff in here. And it is let me share this tab instead. It is done by a company called, I have this product called Week Done, but you can see a lot of information about how to write good OKRs. I need to close this. It keeps popping up. Examples for accounting, administrative, business development for your company, for HR, for tech, for sales, for growth, for product. You can click on any one of them. You'd see what product OKRs are. You see a couple of examples, what the objective is. You'd see how far they've gone. You would see numbers, watch 100 this. They've done 80, get 30 interviews. They've done only 3. And there's a whole methodology around grading them and following them. It's a little bit of performance science, but you can ease your way into this thing depending on how advanced you are in your personal life or in your company or founder or startup or teams, like depending on who's on the call. So thank you very much. We're 46 minutes in. I know we have another 45 minutes on the call. And at this point, I'm going to shut up and turn off my video. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, sir. This was very, very educative and insightful. I hope we all had our pens and papers taking notes, because this is something very important that we need to keep in our mind for the rest of the year. All right. So with much